tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is part 6 of our investigation of the discourse on developing mindfulness. So for those who are new, you've got some homework. Got to catch up. You step into the more advanced stages. So we've already covered the development of mindfulness with regard to the body and the feelings and states of mind. Now we come to the fourth one, the Dhammas, which is a little bit of a specialized theme because there are 5 different topics which deals with, you can say, mental phenomena in a specific sense, but it's also what we call the specific Buddhist concepts with regard to the mind, such as the 5 hindrances and 7 factors of awakening, the 4 noble truths, as well as a few others a bit more technical, 5 groups of grasping and the 6 senses. So this is a little bit more refined, and it's really building upon what we've already learned, since the 5 hindrances are states of mind. And they also have feelings, and they also have physical expressions. So, this is a developmental process, developing mindfulness. So we're now doing the hindrances and slowly going through them. Last week we did the desire for sensual pleasures. And today is ill will as a hindrance. And similarly to sensual desire, it's a major topic, major theme for most people. And basically these hindrances are relating to our fundamental motivating energies. Got that? That's not Buddhist jargon, that's psychobabble. But anyway, because desire is reaching out, ill will is pushing away, and I would say the next 3 are, different expressions of delusion, which is just, paralysis or standing still, don't know what to do. These are the 3 primal energies that motivate us in life. So if you understand them, you understand who you are, what you're doing. Some people, they think, they're in control of their life. But if you observe sensual desire, are you controlling your desire, or is desire controlling you? Oh, big shock. The same with aversion or ill will. I think the Buddha toned this down. In some instances, like the 3 defilements, he talks about aversion, dosa. But in this sense, he talks about ill will, payapad, which is a little bit toned down, you see. The same with the first one, it's just sensual desire. Whereas more technically, he usually talks about craving for sensual pleasures. When you hear that, you get that's a bit too much for me. I won't handle that one. Craving, but desire, well, just liking. The same with ill will. If you hear it, anger or aversion, my goodness. Most of us recognize we have a big backlog of unprocessed aversion, anger, etc. There's a whole range of different intensities and degrees of it, of course. But it is at this level of just say ill will and not liking, pushing away. It's probably is at least accessible to some degree. So similarly, almost similarly, but anyway, if you remember last time I mentioned the technical cause of sensual desire is? Anybody? No? Anybody remember that? That was only last week. Inappropriate attention to the sign of the beautiful. Huh? Or attractive, I would say, attractive. Sign of the attractive, whatever is attractive. And most of us define attractive as pleasant. Huh? What gives us pleasant feeling? It's back to the feelings again. If something's not attractive, I don't know about you, but something isn't attractive doesn't make me feel happy. Well, the technical cause of aversion is inappropriate attention to the sign of the ugly, or the word they use literally means repulsive or irritating. Because ugliness doesn't exist actually. But what repulses you, what irritates you, it can be just, like now the sun just set. That's irritating. Well, some people. Just a minute ago, the sun was shining, and it was pleasant. Huh? I mean, slightly, enough to maybe be noticeable or at least be tolerable anyway. But now the sun set, they think, didn't bring my umbrella. Is it going to rain? The stories can develop. But anyway, so I'm feeling irritated. Not aversion yet, just irritation. Or what you perceive as irritating or repugnant, not quite repulsive. That's a bit strong, maybe. But so first of all, then it'd be helpful to know what inappropriate attention is. And there's two words there in Pali. It's ayoniso manasikara, and the manasikara is attention. That's just neutral. We all have attention. It's one of the functionals of the mind. Every act of consciousness needs attention. The Buddha said, phenomena arise from attention. And he's talking subjectively, of course. There's, you could say if you're, I don't know what they call it. Anyway, one of these philosophers, the world's out there, that exists. But to the Buddha, you close your eyes and it doesn't exist. And I don't pay attention. Don't pay attention to it. It doesn't exist for me. So attention is very fundamental. It's very functional in our brains. But then the Buddha adds this other word, yoniso, or ayaniso, means inappropriate. So yoniso literally means sort of back to the source or back to the origins. So it has basically, Venerable Analayo did a thorough analysis of it in his book on Satipatthana. No, another book actually, anyway. And he found basically three meanings of it. One is very thorough penetrating, right to the source. The other one is appropriate, how to do it correctly, how to attend correctly. And the third one is implied in that is wise reflection or wise attention. You have some understanding of what's appropriate to attend to, and then you can give your attention to it. So I translate it as appropriate attention. Hopefully try and give a general sense maybe of, all three of them if you like, all three meanings if you like. So technically again, this appropriate attention, not the inappropriate, but appropriate attention. Seeing, the Buddha has quite a high idealistic review, a very high definition of it. Appropriate attention is just seeing impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, no self, and you can say, you see the unattractive in the attractive. Not deluded by only looking at the attractive anymore. And sees the evenness of some things. You see beyond attractive or unattractive. So we're just seeing things as they are, beyond attractive or unattractive. So if you can do that, you can see things as neither attractive or unattractive, no greed, no desire, no aversion. Okay? Simple. End of course. Let's got 45 minutes here. So how to do that? So and of course, another point is that, the Buddha starts off with, in the hindrances, I would say, he starts off with desire because that's probably the most prominent hindrance. But it's also, in a way, fairly easy because it has to do with pleasant feeling, right? Who doesn't want to engage with pleasant feeling? Huh? However, we come to ill will, and the cause of that is looking at unpleasantness or what causes you suffering or pain, who wants to look at that? It's a very tricky character. But the Buddha, fortunately, the Buddha gives us a very helpful, you can say, framework to use, called the Four Noble Truths. Okay, there is dukkha, there is unsatisfactoriness, there is unhappiness, there is pain, there is suffering, if you like. But there's a cause. Don't get stuck on suffering. I mean, unfortunately, some, even Buddhists, especially in the West, who've learned Buddhism from the books, they get a little bit hung up on the suffering part. Yeah, so they just think, oh yeah, life is suffering. But the Buddha taught suffering and the path to the cessation of suffering too. Don't forget that part. Otherwise you just end up as a grumpy old Buddhist. Suffering. And I gave a retreat once in Switzerland, and this was a long one, a whole month. And it was one man who came on it, and he was a long-term meditator. But I don't think he'd done a month retreat before, but anyway, he stayed for the whole month. So it was the first month-long retreat I gave. So I asked the people at the end how it went. And this man he was pretty quiet. Didn't say very much during the whole retreat. Sitting there looking very serious. He's from Germany. Mary, you might need to edit that out. You're the editor, right? Oh. Yeah, okay. I don't know where this goes, But anyway, where was I? Oh, yes, he was. So at the end of the retreat, I asked everybody how it was, and he just sat there. So I said, well, how was it for you? He said, you know what? I actually enjoyed this retreat. Like this was something new, He said, I thought Buddhist meditation was, 10 days of mindful suffering. He said, but I surprised myself and I really enjoyed this retreat. It's like his revelation to enjoy meditation. Anyway, the Buddha gives us the Four Noble Truths. There is unsatisfactoriness, there is dukkha, there is a cause of dukkha, it does have a cessation, and there's a path to follow. So hopefully when you keep that in mind, you won't get too frightened by suffering. Because normally it's not a very pleasant thing, Suffering isn't pleasant, is it? Right? We're talking to masochists here. I mean, sense desire, is pleasant based on pleasant feeling. So, we're sort of encouraged to I wouldn't say indulge, engage with it. But ill will, aversion, is based upon unpleasant feeling. Basically, if there's anger, ill will, aversion, whatever, behind it is pain. That aversion is just the reaction to pain. It's like desire is a reaction to pleasant feeling. But we've been conditioned to our life to give inappropriate attention to what is unpleasant, that we have a big backlog of unprocessed anger and aversion. So that's why it's hard to, engage with or pick through, if you like, to unpack, I call it, unpack it. But with the practice of developing mindfulness, concentration, and some other meditation exercises, it's possible to unpack it, unravel it, as it were, because it's just part of a whole causal series. Anger isn't really the issue. If you're trying to get rid of your anger, you're missing the point. It's not a matter of anger, it's a matter of what caused it, the pain. So you have to look through the anger to the pain behind it. Where are you hurting? It could be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Yeah, but most of us haven't even bothered to look, so we got a bit of homework to do here. So the Buddha also there's another little complexity with it, because there's various stages to aversion. The very first stage, I would say, is contraction. You contract. So just like when somebody hits you or something, or you get hurt, you cringe, right? Yeah, you contract, and then it's very unpleasant. That's unpleasant. So then you can get angry at that unpleasantness of the contraction, and then sometimes it just stays locked in your body, in your mind. So you just avoid that situation. That's caused me pain. I'll never go there again. But sometimes when you get either under stress, when you get vulnerable, you get weak or something, and then this contraction just explodes. That's what we call rage. Recognize that too. It doesn't always stay contracted. Sometimes it just blows up. And then we don't know how to handle this energy. So invariably we dump it on people. Dump it on somebody and something. We go and punch the wall, or we punch somebody, whatever. We have to put it outside because it's like an uncontrolled energy exploding. So where do you catch it? I mean, the Buddha gave the precepts to give us a containment, that we don't engage in violence or aggression. Panatipata, refraining from taking the life of any sentient being. That is more refined. It's ahimsa, harmlessness. So when you can at least rein in that energy, it's a possibility now to follow back to its source. But sometimes a lot of that energy, that aversion energy, is locked in the body. So it's very hard to see. It's just like a numbness or paralysis. And people don't realize that they're feeling depressed, for example. Feeling depressed because they're actually angry. There's a saying in psychobabble, mad is sad. Mad is pain, actually. But all they can do is we try and deal with the madness, being mad or angry, you see. Because that's the most obvious symptom of it. But it's not the real source. So it depends where you catch it, you see. So by having the precepts, we kind of restrain some of that exploding energy anyway. We can bring it back to the source. What's behind it? Where's the real root of all this? Where's the pain behind it? And unfortunately, a little top up of that too is that we have a natural, what's been called a negativity bias. Because pain hurts, right? So who wants to experience it again? So you're very defensive to avoid this again in the future. They say that you can, if you've been hurt once, it'll take you 10 times to apologize 10 times before you be forgiven. We don't have a positivity bias. And when things are going well, we're happy. We can become actually very careless. Because everything's no problem, just drifting along. But pain comes along and we're up there to defend ourselves. I mean, it's a biological mechanism. Otherwise, you wouldn't have survived. You got to be on a defensive. There's many dangerous things out there, The wind's blowing, you're walking around, you watch out for the trees, the limbs falling down. As I walk down here, there's quite a few fallen branches on the road there. I realized I'm wearing a woolen hat, not a plastic hat, or not a metal hat. So I was listening very carefully to branches breaking from my head. And a lot of them, if you notice when they fall, notice how they fall. The heavy end goes right into the ground. Imagine that being your brain. I don't want to frighten you. I think I'll wear one of those firefighting white hats back up to the hard hats back. The white hat. Frightening myself. And there's a few extra little in our modern day context. There's a few other variations of anger that I might just mention. I don't know if I get around to dealing with them, but one of the hardest ones is self-hatred. one of the hardest ones to deal with is self-hatred. Apparently it was at some conference with the Dalai Lama, and the psychologist talked about self-hatred, and Dalai Lama just couldn't understand. It's just not a concept in Tibet. Self-hatred? Why would you hate yourself? I mean, if it's really absurd, isn't it? There's a part of you that hates part of you. Yeah. I hate part of myself. I mean, you got a war going on there, you know? But I think I would say it's primarily developed because of competition in our competitive society. You know, we are very competitive. You got to get ahead. You notice on the news, it's always the winner. Is the hero, the winner. There can be 10 people in a race, and you know, some of them maybe have really progressed from their natural abilities. They've progressed. Unless they win, they're nothing. The sort of winner. Only the winner sits on the top, you know. But all the others, they've even surpassed, say, the winner in terms of their energy, their devotion, their commitment, all the rest of it. They didn't win, so tough luck. So of course, you're always going to be an object of hate. I never did it. I couldn't do it. I wasn't successful. So, and the second one is righteous anger. Righteous anger is a bit of a complicated one because it's righteous. It seems to be right, but it's still anger, and anger is never right. Even though the cause is right, maybe, you know, like people protesting, for example. You know, okay, I mean, they have a right to protest, and it's even, you know, praisable because they're pointing out weaknesses in the system, maybe. But to get angry about it undoes it. You know, it's just creating more toxic energy. They have a very good positive contribution to make, but the anger poisons it. Yeah, but it's hard to differentiate between the anger and the righteousness sometimes. So anyway, the cessation of anger, and this is also the Buddha had a special meditation to help us deal with that. And if one develops a meditation on metta bhavana, you know that. It's usually translated as loving kindness, but I think it's a bit too idealistic myself. I prefer to use a direct translation as friendliness. Metta is close to the word for friendliness, mitra. I think in Sanskrit, mitra. So I realize that friendliness is more practical for me, and I think it makes it more accessible to people too, and more usable. I mean, loving kindness to me is a little bit too idealistic. You know, when I was in Thailand, I didn't know about. I basically only knew about anapanasati, mindfulness of breathing. But then reading some books in Thailand, of course, I think metta is the second most popular meditation, and the third one is asubha. So I thought, oh well, maybe I should do this metta meditation. Maybe I should practice it. And I had fortunately, in the monastery, there was a book in the library in English, a big thick one. But it was useful because it was a manual of Buddhist practice, Visuddhimagga, for those who are. I wouldn't recommend it at this stage, but but it gives the instructions for all the 40 meditation themes in Buddhism, Theravada Buddhism. So, but this one, metta, I thought I should practice it. So, and what they say, what I understood in the beginning anyway, was that you bring up this feeling of well-being in yourself, then you spread it to the 10 directions, front and back and left and right and up and how is that? Yeah, is that 8 or 10 there? Anyway, the cardinal directions anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. So anyway, I tried this. I was sitting there and I tried to bring up well-being, and then I tried to radiate it out to the birds and to the crickets and to the worms in the ground. And by the end, I was so dizzy. Too many things. And so it just didn't work. It was just too brainy. So I just gave up after a while. It was just too much.
Isn't that your feeling, not brain?
Yeah, now I understood, yes. I was literally following the directions, you see. But as you read in the scripture on mindfulness, on metta bhavana, it says, ahang sukhito homi, may I be well. So you bring up a feeling and experience of well-being in your own heart. Yeah. And ideally, I had to figure out this part. You have to wait till that sense of well-being in your own heart is overflowing before you can share it. I just had a little bit of well-being. Oh yeah, you be well. Okay, let's not go after the birds now. And it just got exhausted. It's like a battery being discharged, you see. But then I realized one has to keep it charged up. May I be well, may others be well. May I be well, may others be well. And then, that's helpful in a way, but it still is a little bit heady, I would say, or idealistic. But the way to practice it, I would advise, is what I call an insight meditation practice. That is, what is yourself? We're supposed to bring well-being to ourself. What's ourself? Body, feelings, states of mind. So try and be more friendly to, say, the physical sensations, the unpleasant physical sensations. That's how you can experience it directly, not just may I be well, may others be well. Yes, ouch, my knee. Oh my goodness. Oh, ow. May others be well. May others be well, and darn it, but not me. but I can't be well. So you need to bring it home to the direct experience of what you take to be yourself. And then you can begin to really sense it, what it really means. It's not just a good ideal or a way to even, get rid of anger and aversion. That's a result of it, but there's a different approach we're using now. When we have this, say, physical sensation, and it becomes unpleasant. And our normal reaction is ill will towards it, right? Ill will towards the pain. Yeah. Okay, let's agree with me. But now we're trying to have goodwill towards the pain and reverse engineer that whole process now. But to be able to do that, you have to give up your old self. My old self is programmed to react with ill will. Now, to be able to create goodwill now, you have to shift your whole perception. You have to change your whole concept of yourself. We built ourselves around developing ill will towards pain. All these years, until we understand the Buddhist teachings, we've been programming our mind and our being to react with ill will towards pain. And now the Buddha comes along and says, try and practice goodwill now to pain. Because, so with me? Anybody think I'm crazy? You understand, yeah. But it requires a practice because it isn't actually logical. Yeah, we still are still programmed to react with ill will or try and conquer, try and get rid of pain. Not be friendly with it, not to be open to it, receptive to it, are we?
To surrender?
Wow, we're very advanced. Eventually. Yeah. It's a developmental process. So I'd say developing metta, the very first level is just non-contention. Yeah. Not fighting with the pain, for example. Not fighting with suffering. So how you can recognize that, I think the easiest way is in the physical body. Because if you look at the body when there's pain, it contracts. Now just try and relax now rather than follow the old contraction, just try and relax into the pain. Relax it, not contract with it. Usually it's not so easy, but if the mind has enough concentration and enough mindfulness and maybe wisdom to recognize the usefulness of this, you can do that. And most people, they just contract and then they tolerate a bit more. Then I got to get up and do walking meditation now. Gotta go back in there for the next round. The next struggle, the next fight. But if you try and relax into it, and it's not easy either, because there's resistance to the relaxing, to the resistance to the contraction, but if you can maybe breathing into it, learning to relax a bit more concentration, you can begin to recognize there's a shift in the way we understand this whole process now. At least we don't compound it by not contending with it. We don't compound that whole process anymore. And if you recognize that there is, a lot of possibilities of insight within that, maybe you could even be a little bit more welcoming. What is pain? Most of us have no idea. We just react to it. Yeah. But I would even say that depends on the situation and the person, but I would say sometimes up to 80 or 90% of the pain is your resistance to it.
Mental.
Yeah, and physical too. It means into our whole system. It's our trauma with pain. So as soon as you recognize pain, start to freak out. The red flags go up. Yeah. How much longer before the bell goes? We're gonna make it. I'm gonna lose face, and my neighbor, they hear me move first, and chicken. We've lots of stories to come up with. I'm gonna show them. So I have some results of that myself, because I have a really bad knee now, arthritic knee, from years of sitting on the concrete floor in Thailand. Where it was a bunch of, kind of macho men at Wat Nana Chat. We're going to sit there through the mosquitoes and the heat and the starvation, and we're not going to move. Of course, most of the people were just nodding off. Couldn't keep it up. But I was pretty good. I was pretty good at beating myself up to impress people. So I sat there, through the pain and the pain and the pain. And I did think that, maybe if there's enough concentration, maybe I get some psychic powers and heal myself. But 10 years later, I was diagnosed having arthritis now in my knee. So maybe somebody helped somewhat. And as we know, feeling is in the mind, you see. So when your mind has more concentration, the concentration raises your level of consciousness. So if you're not very concentrated, you're kind of distracted. Any little bit of pain, irritation disturbs you, right? But if you're deep concentration, you can have quite a bit of pain, and you're in your high state of mind and concentration, and the pain goes to the background then. Sometimes it is you're just not paying attention to it, but your mind is focused on something else, the breathing and not the pain. But it doesn't last forever. So the trouble is, eventually your concentration drops, or you get distracted, and then, oh my goodness, my poor knee. But pain can be very focusing too, because you can't get away from it. It's very, very obvious. Much more stronger sensation than the breathing. So when I was first in Thailand, well, not first, but after the first year, I had a lot of sleepiness. Of the weather in Thailand, and not getting a lot of exercise either. Living in a monastery, not much exercise. And our diet, restricted diet. Anyway, so I again, being too clever for my own good, I thought of this very skillful technique that I would sit in a posture, half lotus, and the more sleepy I got, the longer I sat, the more sleepy I got. The longer I sat, the more pain I got too. So I could balance out the pain and the sleepiness. Just keeping on the edge of it. Pain keep me awake, you see, for an hour or so, and then I had to pull out, and then and the pain was a lot more than the sleepiness. That did work for a while. And there is a one of the meditation masters in Thailand, Ajahn Mahabua, apparently used that practice of pain meditation. I'm not recommending it. I don't recommend it, because it can be a bit dangerous. When there's pain, the body is under stress. So you got to be very, very wise to deal with your body skillfully. Otherwise, you're going to suffer for it, which I am right now. But anyway, if you develop this metta meditation this way, trying to be relaxed into it, and trying to open to it, what happens is that you begin to recognize that your sense of a self, the self which has been built around the rejection or the ill will towards the pain, has to change. And when you change, the pain changes. And your kind of definition of pain, if you like, my definition, my ego definition of pain, for me, changes. And that changes, and I change. I have less fear of pain, for example. Before any kind of pain, I tried to get away from it. But when I could look at it and recognize, it's just, most of it's resistance or aversion or fear or something to it. Sometimes it is a contraction, physical contraction, mental contraction. When pain comes, then your whole world can shrink down around that pain. Poor me, oh no, what have I done? What's my karma? What's my bad karma to get this pain? And you just forget about the rest of the world, obsessed with pain. And it does have that effect, of course. You can't deny that. I'm not trying to deny it, but it depends on your attitude, how you can relate to it more skillfully. Instead of buying into the ill will circuit, an aversion circuit, try friendliness. Try to be more open to it, receptive. Yes, there is pain in life. Yeah. This was that's one of the lessons the Buddha was trying to wake people up to. There is pain in life. Because people are denying it. Old age, sickness, and death, keep hiding it away. Somebody gets sick, they whisk them off to a private hospital bed somewhere. Rush to get an operation. Hide it away. But it was, it's part of life. So be more open to it, receptive to it. You have a much more relaxed attitude. Yes, this is the way it is. Not denying it, not glossing over with, oh yes, loving kindness, everything's wonderful. But having a different attitude to it. And if you can develop this enough, basically, it's a little bit a controversial point in Theravada, but in one of the scriptures, the Metta Sutta, the Metta Sutta, this is what should be done for those who will see. You get down to the very end, those who are developed this, and a few other things, they will not be reborn again in this world. So, in one sense, is an indication in the scriptures that development of metta can lead to nibbana. In the other commentaries of the Sutta, it says no, only to the first jhana, because there still is conceptual thought. You see, you're still thinking of spreading love, loving kindness to, 4 directions and all this, but it can be developed to the degree of being boundless well-being. We're all living beings and everything. But if you follow this practice, then you're being friendly to this object of pain, say the knee, for example. So when you can do that, you shift, you change your attitude. The pain changes. The pain changes, you change. You can say that the object changes, then the subject changes. The subject changes, the object changes, to the point where there is the subject and the object disappear. There's nobody feeling any pain. You can say it's, unconditioned love or boundless openness of heart or something or other. So it has, positive developments. Though we still haven't got down. It's not getting rid of pain. It's not getting pain. There's still pain there. But it allows us to approach it. That's the main thing, I would say, rather than using metta as an antidote to ill will or aversion. Some people, they think that, oh yes, somebody hurt me, so I'll spread friendliness to them. And sometimes you're trying to develop this meditation, it doesn't quite work. I would say with two reasons why it doesn't work. One is the wrong object, and the second one is the wrong application of it. The wrong object is, if somebody hurt you, don't spread loving kindness to them. Spread loving kindness to your own hurt. They hurt you because you had something in you which got hurt. Yeah. They didn't even plan to hurt you, but you got hurt. That's your problem. Yeah. But then people think, oh, it's their problem. They hurt me. They must be a bad person. No, look in here. Have metta, friendliness for your own anger, your own hurt. That's the right place to look. So the way of doing it is to keep it coming back to yourself again, not to look outside for sources of it. It's all based upon hurt. When you can develop it a bit more, you realize that when somebody's angry, what you don't hear is the anger anymore. You hear the pain. They're in pain. Then you recognize, oh, now that's where I have to look. When there's anger, bring it back home here. Where's the pain? What in me is hurting? Physical, mental, spiritual, whatever, emotional. You might find a source there then. And some of it will be, I would say there's a causal sequence there. A lot of causality there. We wake up maybe, or woken up by the anger because it's a very powerful energy, but behind it, there's a lot more other stuff there too. Just ignorance and, the self. So if you can unpack and go back to the source, that's where you're going to wise up about you're holding on to yourself. That's why yourself gets hurt. If there's no self there, nobody gets hurt. Right? So one of the ways to reflect upon it too is the impermanence. When you begin to, with this contraction, I say, what happens is there's a pain there. Your body and mind contract around it and turn it into a thing. But if you can be more friendly and open to it, you see it more dynamically. How it kind of flows as the energy, it comes and it goes. And when your concentration increases, the pain falls away, fades away. Lose concentration, it comes back again. Things like this. When you think negative thoughts, in the Dhammapada, there's one scripture that says something like, when you think about they hurt me, they abused me, then you compound the anger. But if you think about forgiveness and letting go, and then the hurt begins to diminish. I'm not compounding it anymore. So I don't know if we got time for an example. Probably I've told this before. I haven't mentioned it for a while actually. The ski slope, ski track story. Oh, I forget about snow when I'm here. Huh? Yeah. Switzerland. Yes, I was in Switzerland. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, I better keep it short here. But anyway, the show about the causality processes of aversion, different levels of it. So one day in the Swiss Alps, and we had this wonderful snowfall. The next day the sun came out, picture postcard, Switzerland in the Alps. I thought, I have to get a picture for my postcard. Sent to my mother. So the best place to get a photograph was to walk out in the front of the field in front of the monastery, which is a ski track in the wintertime, you see. But according to the the laws of Switzerland, you shouldn't walk on the ski track. It's for skiers, you see, not walkers. But I thought, well, I'll just take 10 minutes, you know. I know this, but it just take me 10 minutes. I'll go out there and take a photograph and be off before anybody comes. And the one time in my whole life in Switzerland, in 17 years, that I was walking the ski track and this guy came along and says, "Get off the ski track." One time in 17 years. That was this time. And I felt guilty because I knew I was doing the wrongs. I thought, I'm just taking one photograph and be off in a minute. No, get off right now. You know? So I stepped off the ski track and had the snow up to my knees. I can't get out of this. I have to walk back on the ski track too. You know? Anyway, he kept going at me. You know? And he was even skied away. And then I saw he was gone over the hill, so I started walking back and skiing. He came back over the hill and said, "Get off the ski." Anyway, okay, I got off the ski track. Middle of our winter retreat, 3-month winter retreat. Back to my hut, back to my room, and I sat there in a bit of anger. Who does this guy think he is anyway? I live here, you know. He's a day tripper. I live here, you know. But anyway, I just, you know, let it go, I guess. Next day, it's still there. This is disturbing my retreat. Not so peaceful anymore. Third day, still there. Oh my goodness, so this is going to be a problem maybe. But as I recognize,